Okay. Is this recording now? It is.
Don't be racist.
Shh. Yeah, don't be racist. What? I don't know, I just heard her say don't be racist to someone. Always a good idea. Are you being racist against Arabs?
No. What am I, Bengali?
Wait. You're not Chinese? Oh my goodness, all this time I was wrong.
Why did I put alayhi?
Thank you.
Everyone thinks I'm Indian here.
Yes.
Especially.
Wait, hang on. You're saying that as if people think you're Indian. Alright,
I
okay.
thought I was Indian.
Who taught you're Indian?
Finn.
Oh, that's terrible. Terrible.
That's very offensive.
Very offensive, yeah.
Hey, Mom. What you look like?
What?
No, she does not look. She doesn't look Indian at all.
She doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
Emirati. Go to Emirates and see.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they'd be on the construction sites. Isn't that right? Isn't that what most Indian workers do in the Emirates? Isn't it?
No. What? Yes, they've been. No, that's not what I mean.
Yeah. Somebody has to build those tall buildings, right? Yes, yeah. Honest work. Okay. You'll find out, but seriously, you'll find out in each country there's usually one immigration group that does a lot of the construction work. So, for example, in Ireland, would you know which?
Irish people.
Well, now more recently, though. Now,
Romanian?
no, Polish workers are usually construction site workers. So each country has their own group, you know. So I always think of in Dubai it being Indians, right,
Yes.
for construction. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to look at now today, quartiles is a lot like median. So do you remember does median mean? What's the median value? Middle value. So if you had, for example, these numbers, what you do is you put them in order. So it'd be 1, 2, 4, 6, 9. And what's the median here? 4. Quartiles is something very, very similar. We have something called the lower quartile. And that is the median of the lower half. So in other words, you take your data and you split it into two halves. The lower quartile is the median of the first half. So quartile is a lot like the word quarter. So it is like the first quarter. So if you wanted to picture it, imagine you had a long list of numbers. The lower quartile would be the number that's 1/4 of the way through the list. Okay? And likewise, you could probably figure out for yourselves what the upper quartile would be. What would that be? Yeah. Now, just so I can have some letters, you could call this one Q1. I think I have a typo actually. I need to check it online, but I wrote Q2, but in fact I think people actually call the upper one Q3. Anyways, it's not so important. It's just the one that's not Q1. So we have Q1 and then I wrote Q2 on the worksheet, but I think it might actually be Q3. But like I said, that's not so important to know. So that's lower and upper quartile, and then we have something called the interquartile range. Sounds very difficult. In fact, all it is the upper minus the lower. Notice how that's very similar to the word range, which means the maximum minus the minimum. please don't confuse the two. Sometimes in the exam they'll ask for the range, and sometimes they'll ask for the interquartile range. Okay, can I scroll down? So, can you just call out those numbers again, please, in order, and we'll do an example calculation. So, what were they? 1, 2, 4, 6, 9. Okay, let's calculate some things. What would the range be here? 9 minus 1, which is 8. So that's straightforward calculation. Now, what would be the upper quartile here? What do you think? The upper quartile, what would it be?
2, 4.
Now you see, yeah, upper. So we're thinking 6, yeah? And what was the lower? 2. So you got to be careful. Those answers are right, but in fact, there's 2 ways you could do it. And the way you're doing it is fine, but let me show you the 2 different ways. So you have your 1, 2, 4, 6, 9, and you split it into 2 halves. So what would the lower half be? 1, 2, 4. And then the upper half? 4, 6, 9. But sometimes, well, not sometimes, some people, remember I think last time I said in statistics, unlike other chapters, statistics, sometimes the rules might look a little different depending on what course or school or book you're using. In fact, there are 3 ways to calculate the upper and the lower quartile. The way you did it is fine, but the other method is you don't include the median in your 2 halves. So what's the median here? Is 4. So if I don't include it, then the lower be 1, 2, and then the upper will be 6, 9. So here the lower is 2, and what's the upper? 6. Whereas here the lower is 1.5, and the upper here 7. No, 7.5. You see how you got 2 different answers depending on whether you include or exclude the median from the upper and the lower. What do they like to do in the exam? In the exam, I have to check the marking scheme. But I think in the exam, what did I like to do? Did I like to include or exclude it? I'll have to check a marking scheme when you're working on it. But just so you know, I feel like if the question didn't say which method to use, that you should, I'll probably still give you full marks regardless of which method you use, okay? But just make it clear to the person who's correcting it which method you're using. So if you want to give it a name, the method on the left, you might just call it the including the median, including the median, and then this method here would be excluding. You know the word include and exclude, right? So this one here, you can call it inclusive method, or another one would be exclusive method. Anyways, that's the lower and that's the upper. That's the lower, that's the upper. So what would be the range here? Interquartile range. That would be 6 minus 2, which is 4. And then here, interquartile range, 7.5 minus 1.5, which is 6. Now, I need a moment. So, if you want to give it some names here. Exclusive of the median, and then this one here would be inclusive. Let me just make sure I'm calling them the same things here. Yeah, inclusive of the median. Yeah, what's wrong?
Which one should we do in the exam?
I said I had to check what they like in the marking scheme, but to be honest, if you did it either of these ways, I'd still give you the full marks as long as you're telling me I did it the exclusive or inclusive way. But I'll check which one they prefer in the marking scheme. Not that it should really matter. There is a third way to do it, and it'll never be this in the exam, but just so you've seen it, I'll show you the third way. And the reason it won't be this in the exam is because the third way is actually you do both these methods and then you take your average answer. So for example, in this one here, what was my lower using the first method? 2. And my lower using the second method? 1.5. So method number 3 is you use the average from the two answers. So that would be 1.75. That's the average of those two. And then the upper would be the average of those two, which is I think 6.75. And then the interquartile range would be that number minus that number, which is 5. Which you also know is in fact the average of the two answers here, 4 and 6. The reason this will never happen in the exam is because to do the method the third way, you actually have to do it both the first and second way and take the average of the two answers. But either way, all three answers from all three methods should be close.
I'm sorry, because it gives us too many different answers.
Which one?
Why is it important? Like, the whole lesson?
Rephrase that question slightly differently so that I can try and answer it. So what are you asking me? Why are quartiles important, or
Yes.
what are they useful for? Okay, so what they're useful for, why do we use quartiles, is because they let us know where most of our data will lie. So for example, I only have 5 numbers here, okay? But let's imagine I had 100 numbers. And let's say they're, I don't know, let's say they're blood sugar levels of 100 people. So if you find the lower and the upper, what unit is blood sugar in? Does anyone know? When you measure your blood sugar, if you have diabetes, what units are they in? Or when you measure blood sugar, do you know? Is it like grams per litre, or what is it? No idea? I don't know what unit they use, but I think on the machine they tend to give you a 2-digit number, and normal values would be around about 10. Would it be? Huh? 15 is normal? You're not sure? 200 something sounds way too big.
No, it gives that value something.
Yeah, but I think that's a problem. Like, what's a normal value?
Between
100.
Between 70.
50 and I always thought they were smaller. Anyways, okay, it doesn't matter. Let's just pretend it's a number between 0 and 100, and 50 is good, and then maybe 90 is your sugar's too high, and 200 is real too high. I don't know what the unit is, but we'll just pretend it's this, okay? So if you got the lower quartile is 40, and then the upper quartile is, let's say, 70, what that lets you say as a doctor is that 50% of people are always going to be between the lower and the upper. So I know for certain that half my patients should be between 40 and 70.
Not for certain, because it depends on how you calculate it. So it's not...
Yeah, okay, so now this thing, you have 3 different answers here. But the good news is that as your sample gets bigger and bigger, these answers get closer and closer together. So they're quite different because my sample's only 5. But if I had 500, then I would expect no difference between them. But you're right, it looks exaggerated because the sample's only 5. Yes?
So what if we have 5 samples?
Oh, if you're a doctor and you only have 5 samples, you need to do more research, for sure. Yeah.
Maybe it's a rare disease or something. So.
That's true. Then in that case, fair enough point, it'd be inappropriate to use this for a sample of 5. You'd really want maybe at least 10. Okay, now I'm going to do another example of this, but this time, rather than having 5 numbers, I'll have 6, and I'm going to do both methods again. Okay, so I'll put the numbers in order at the beginning. Let's see, 1, 5, 10, 12, 20, 30. Okay, so let's look at the two methods and see what answers we get. So in the first one, the range is still going to be 30 minus 1, which equals 29. And for the second method, still going to be 30 minus 1, which equals 29. Now, for this method, let's use the first one as the including one. So we include the median. What's the median for this data? What's the median here?
11.
It's 11, isn't it? Because you have to take the middle of...
It's 12.
No, but there's 1, 2... Yeah. So it's 11 here. It's the middle of these. Okay? So what would be the lower half? It'd be 1, 5, 10. But in fact, you can't write down 11 because 11 isn't part of the list. Although it's the median, it's not actually part of the list. So you can't actually write it down. So even though I am including the median here, it's not a listed point to include. And then the uppers would be 12, 20, 30. So what's the lower here? 5. And what's the upper here? 20. Now this one here, this is where I don't include the median. So that's 1, 5, 10, and I don't include 11. But it's still the same result. And then here it's 12, 20, 30, and I don't include 11. Still the same result. So my point is, in this example, both methods gave me the same answer. And the reason for that was because there's an even number in data. There was no difference in the methods here. They gave the same answer. It only mattered really when there was an odd number, like in the previous example. And then don't forget the third method is the average of both. So what's the average of 5 and 5? It's 5. So what's nice about this example is all 3 methods give the same answer, so it actually didn't matter which method you used. Now, like I said, again for the exam, it's no big deal if you do one of these methods and they preferred the other one in the marking scheme, because they won't tell you which method to use. So you just need to make it clear to me what method you're using. As you're working on the worksheet, I'll check what they use in the exam. Actually, you know what? I'll check now as you have it here. Well, let me just write down the interquartile range here. So, interquartile range, what would that be? 15, and here 15, and then here 15. Okay, let's have a look at the exam. Science and engineering. So, this is nice because for 6 marks, find the range, the median, and the interquartile range of that list of numbers for 6 marks. That's 6% of the exam. You put them in order. Median's in the middle, lower is the middle of the lower half, upper is the middle of the upper half, and so on. Now let's have a look at them. Let's see how many numbers there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Good. So this is an odd number. So this will become clear which method they use. So maybe we'll do this one together. Let me try and open up the piece of paper so I can write at the same time. Alright, good. Alright, so let's write the numbers out in order. Okay, so can you all see? No, maybe I should zoom in a bit. I'm zooming in. Can you all see that? Yeah. Okay. Right. So what's the smallest number there? 29, and then any 25, and then 29. Yeah. 25, 29. There's a 32 twice. And after, there's a 37 just once. And then there's a 47 just once. And then we're on to the 50s. There's a 54, 56, and a 57. 54, 56, 57. 65, 82. So that's a 57. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go. So, oops. The median here is for 11 numbers be number 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 47. So the median is 47. And the range would be 82 minus 25. So 57. Now, the lower quartile. There's two ways to do it. You can either include or exclude. So if we were to include, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So the range would be number 3 and number 4. So that's 32 and 32. So that's equal to 32. Now if we exclude it, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 numbers. So the middle of 5 numbers will be, so it's 32 or 32. So the same, doesn't matter. Now the upper quartile, if we include 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's the middle of 56 and 57, which is 56.5. And then if we exclude, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's the middle of 5 numbers, which is 57. So there's a tiny difference there. The interquartile range will equal 57 minus 32, or 56.5 minus 32. So what's that going to be? 18 and 7, 25, is it? 25 or 24.5. So depending on which answers in the marking scheme will tell us if they use the include or exclude method. So let's have a look at the marking scheme. And because the answer is 25, that was my first one here where we included. So for me, it seems like in the exam, they like you to use the inclusive method, including the median. So I'll make it, I'll make a note of that here. Exam prefers including the median. But as you can see, Sarah, here the difference between the two answers is 0.5, so no big number. Don't have class tomorrow, right? Except for, yeah, the ICT. You don't have maths. Okay.
Is this the end?
No, I'm thinking there's 4 more things left to do in statistics. A line chart, a histogram, a cumulative frequency curve, and then skewness at the very end. So you know a histogram, you would have done that in biology. A line graph you would have done in both physics, chemistry and biology. It's just a graph where you put your points on it and connect the dots. So you did that as well. Cumulative frequency curve, I don't know if you did this in high school before, but it's a curve that kind of goes flat and then steep and then flat again. If you've seen it before, you can use this curve to get the median. And then the last thing, then a histogram, and then last thing is something called skewness, which is at the very end, which it would only be a 1 mark question in the exam if it came up, which it usually doesn't. So yeah, we're 4 lessons to go after this. We have 5 classes next week. Okay, so I have 1 class spare next week before the break because we don't lose anything due to the Friday. So if you like, for the very last class next week before the break, we can also look at the project to see how much you've progressed from this week, since you won't be able to ask me questions during the break, because I think I have the due date for after the break, isn't it? The 20-something, wasn't it? It was Monday after the holiday, is it?
Yes.
The Monday you come back. Yeah. So you have all of Easter to work on it then.
Can we send you like questions?
Oh, you can send me them. It doesn't mean I'll answer them. Maybe.
Okay, could you answer the questions that you're going to send?
It depends how busy I am. I'm planning on sleeping until 12.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I'm tired of getting up at 6 o'clock every morning. So then I might go to a coffee shop.
Maybe you can check them in the comments.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if there's internet, maybe.